Urban sprawl is characterized by unmanaged, widespread linear growth. It is not only unattractive to most people, it is also not sustainable. Although it gives short-term economic and employment boosts caused by new construction, it is a growing concern in all of America. One problem with it is longer and more frequent commutes, which are a major concern associated with urban sprawl. The average American spends the equivalent of 8 55-hour work weeks behind the steering wheel of a car annually. More driving leads to more air pollution, which soon contribute to poor health and smog problems. Another problem is spreading out development creates water overconsumption. A typical low-density or suburban community uses more water than a high-density city community. Landscaping is the primary culprit for this excessive use of water. According to the EPA, 30% of the water used daily in the United States is devoted to outdoor use. Furthermore, the steady suburbanization of major food retailers is contributing to the emergence of urban food deserts. Areas within city centers where low-income people have poor access to vegetables and fruits, along with high consumption of sugary or high-fat foods. Urban food deserts may be taking a health toll on those who live in socially deprived neighborhoods. Loss of wildlife habitat is also a huge issue. The San Francisco Bay Area, with over 400,000 acres of natural landscape, is one of the nation's 6 hotspots for biological diversity. The region has a wide variety of plant and animal species. Unfortunately, 90 of them, including the California tiger salamander, are listed as endangered or threatened. Rapid development can negatively affect wildlife by tearing down, clearing, or building over its habitat, potentially threatening survival. When residents relocate outside of a city's core, they take their tax dollars with them. Often, it's the city's poorest residents that are left behind. This creates economic disparity and stratification based upon location. It also creates funding problems for the core, which directly affects the money available for education, crime prevention, maintenance, and upkeep. Surprisingly, increased risk of obesity occurs for people living in urban areas, according to the Ontario College of Family Physicians and the American Planning Association. Both studies show that people living in suburban areas tend to rely on their vehicles more often, even for short trips, instead of walking or cycling. These lower levels of activity increases the risk of obesity, which can lead to other health problems, such as heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. In correlation to locations, urban expansion is of high degree and complexity. It does not occur in all regions at the same degree, at the same pace, or in the same way. Rather, it must be approached and understood taking into account specific geographical and historical contexts in which particular urban forms shape cities. In Mediterranean cities, urban trends do not necessarily follow the North American model, and outcomes may differ with respect to the situation found on the other side of the Atlantic. The impact of the severe economic crisis that began in 2007 should also be considered, as its effects have been particularly drastically felt in Mediterranean countries. The crisis has not broken the metropolitan expansion, but it has affected the model of the city itself. In Spanish cities, whose model of growth has been heavily dependent on construction sector, the crisis has evidently put a stop to urban growth. In desert ecosystems such as Phoenix, there are millions of untouched desert acres around Phoenix where new suburbs could easily spring up. As Phoenix spreads farther into the desert, some city officials and environmental groups think this problem will become unmanageable. Central Phoenix has gained 200,000 new residents. Every year, thousands of acres of farmland and Sonoran Desert are turned into suburban housing developments, strip malls, and parking lots. Phoenix is now the 6th largest metropolitan area in the U.S., and it has been neck to neck with Las Vegas for 3 decades as the fastest city in America. The Phoenix metropolitan area has a population greater than 17 states. Urban and residential area expansion cause significant forest loss, both in the consumption of building materials and as a source of land. While urbanization can reduce direct pressures on forests by the migration of rural residents to population centers, urban and suburban sprawl can be damaging when they occur in frontier settlements and in boomtowns. Centrally planned urban experiments have resulted in tremendous forest loss in parts of the world. Indonesia's massive transmigration program moves some 730,000 families, more than 6 million people, to the outer islands of New Guinea, Borneo, Sumatra, and Sulawesi in an effort to reduce population pressures on the crowded central islands of Java and Bali. The program was generally seen as a failure since many colonists failed to establish successful farms in the hinterland, while large areas of primary forests were cleared. Today, some of the worst fires in Indonesia occurs on these once forested lands. Conflicts between migrants and original inhabitants remains a problem, especially in places like Indonesia and New Guinea. Solutions to urban sprawl in the different ecosystems is not simple but not impossible. We can restore rainforests by utilizing second growth forests for timber production. Also, reforestation, much previously forested land, probably hundreds of millions of hectares, can be reforested, although it would take many years before their biodiversity and complex ecological webs are recovered. Many other areas could regenerate naturally if they are left fallow and are not converted to other purposes. We can also work to keep enough attractive, affordable, updated housing choices within the already developed area, making available quality walking and biking facilities for transportation and also public transit. Using zoning and other land use regulations to create development patterns that makes active transportation in the form of walking and cycling practical for the shortest of trips. Preserve pristine open space within a short drive from the central city without the intrusion of suburban style developments into that area. Strengthen the ability of existing suburbs to govern themselves well and to survive financially, and eliminate the environmentally wasteful practice of tearing down older buildings and starting over, except when buildings have been allowed to deteriorate to the point that demolition is justified and even the best solution.